The only way I could have done it yesterday was take off work and it's,
Yeah.
there's not much I despise more than getting up leaves. I don't really want to burn vacation.
Your leaves may be gone, maybe your neighbors.
I
usually get, I'm usually the collector. Yeah.
Well, they were out collecting. Now you know.
We live. All right. I'll call the regular meeting for December 18th, 2025 to order. We are now live on our YouTube channel. The approval of the minutes is the first order of business from the regular meeting of November 20th of 2025. Do I have a motion to accept those minutes?
I'll make a motion. So
Okay, Michael Ford makes a motion. Second,
Second.
Steve. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, by like sign. All right, looking at taking a quick review of the financial statements. The water budget tracking report shows that the revenue less the grant money of 398,000 is 860 some odd thousand against the budget to date of 807,000. I don't see any major expenditures that exceed budget in any of the categories. Total expenditures is 689,000 against a budget of 768,000. So currently the water expenses is tracking well against the budget that we presented in July. So the sewer budget tracking, the revenue continues to hold. We do have bond revenue in that. Still less the bond money. It's general collections, general funds is above the budgeted number of 343,000. Again, there is I don't see any some repair to the system is a little bit high. I'm at about 75,000 against a 45,000 expected budget. It's just normal items that happen to us is ongoing. But overall, the total expenditures is 409,000 against a budget of 477,000. So we're holding there as well with our budgeted numbers. November trial balance, the cash at the end of November was $1,118,892,000. That compares to a year ago, which we know money's been spent for capital expenditures and so forth, is considerably less than where we were in November of last year. We were at 1,958,000 last year, but there's capital expenditures are there. I will make a note, because it'll show up in December, but we had the final bill from Travis Construction came due, was a sizable bill, and instead of drawing down the general cash fund in December, we made the decision to pay him out of the infrastructure funds, advanced funds from the city. So we had a balance in November of due on that of 224,000, and that will jump significantly, and that will be pending the whatever we get from the bond will be paid back against that drawdown in that fund. And we don't know what that is yet. That's still to be through the legal circles. So any questions on the finances or whatever at this point?
You said the drawdown was 224, is that the drawdown?
No, that's what was the balance that we still owed at the end of November.
Okay.
The drawdown was in excess of 300,000, I think, or
How much?
close to that.
Since it was 423,555.85.
Yep.
We just did not have that cash.
We had already drawn all the funds available through the loan.
So and that'll be a balance that's gonna move to our
Yeah,
next
it's gonna
billing
be like
cycle.
600,000 out of
Yeah.
the city.
Yeah, below the city, and hopefully we'll get money back from the bonding company to offset a good portion of that.
So I have sent a message to council on December 10th. And I have not received an update since then. We'll keep everyone posted when we do.
All right. The Adam project updates and so forth, let's postpone that until after we've heard from Bob, and would like to welcome Nita and Dustin and Ralph to the meeting tonight for the presentation from Bob. And I said Nita. I did recognize you, didn't I, Nita? Thank you. And each one of you have, I think, 2 packets, which Mr. Miller has put together for us. And Bob's on the screen and with us. He's in Northern Kentucky. Is that what you said?
Actually, I'd spent the day in Northern Kentucky and I was able to make it back home. I would have much preferred to be there with you all, but Northern Kentucky and Western Kentucky was just a bridge too far to get there in time without holding you up. So thank you for allowing me to join you by video.
All right. I'm assuming that you would like to go ahead and start with maybe the water section. It's the smoothest one, maybe.
Yes, we have done 2 rate studies for you for the water system and for the sewer system, and they're completed and they're in front of you. They're based off of data from the unaudited financial statements through June 30, 2025. So these are recent numbers, but they're not yet audited numbers. I believe that they are good numbers, though. What I would want you to know on the water system is your practice of adjusting the water rates annually has served you well on the water system. When I did the rate study, only made a few adjustments to the numbers that were provided. On the revenue side, you all received some grant revenue during the past year that is considered to be non-recurring, and so we excluded that from the anticipated future revenues.
You're
Also,
on page 3, Bob. Is that what you're looking at?
the references I'm making are the adjustments that are on page 3. Speaking also from the verbiage that's on page 2 in the executive summary. But on the schedule of adjusted operations, I excluded out the grant revenue since that's considered to be non-recurring. I also adjusted your water revenues. What we do is we look at what you all booked as revenue on your general ledger, and then we compare that, multiplying the amount of consumption you had from your billing system, multiplied by the rates that you've authorized to see what amount of revenue should have been created. So we had a real small adjustment there. We also, on the expense side, we excluded out purchases of land and equipment since those are considered to be capital expenditures and excluded from recurring anticipated future expenses. And so with that, we computed on page 4, we computed your revenue requirement 2 different ways. The first way is for you to recover your operating expenses, your debt service coverage, as well as your I'm sorry, your debt service, principal and interest, and the coverage. We also looked to see if you needed any additional working capital. You all have, right now, you have 122.8 days of working capital available. I think that's a good, healthy amount and does not need to be increased. And so with that, if you wanted to recover your operating expenses, your debt service, and your depreciation, you would need what I consider to be a very modest 5.62% increase. At the bottom of page 4, we also show that if you decide not to recover depreciation in your rates, that your current revenues are already sufficient and an additional rate increase is not needed. Generally speaking, we typically recommend that a municipality like yours consider recovering depreciation because it gives you a revenue stream towards replacement and rehabilitation of the assets that you've already got into the ground, knowing that those have a limited useful design life and will have to be replaced at some point in the future. Some organizations, though, choose not to recover depreciation. And so typically what happens then is when they need to do replacement or rehabilitation, they have to have a debt issue. The amount of depreciation that you're recovering would not be sufficient to replace all of your assets over time, but it would allow you to replace a portion of them, thereby reducing the amount of debt service you need to take on, the amount of interest that you have to pay. So with that, you've got a fairly simple decision on whether you want to continue on with the path of the annual rate increases. I think it's based on the CPI, or if you want to, for this year, in lieu of making the annual adjustment based on CPI, make the adjustment based on that 5.62%. It's essentially a good situation because you've got you don't have a bad decision to make. You've got from selection between 2 good choices.
Glenda has, Bob, for your information, Glenda has looked at that CPI and they do not have the October numbers yet posted on that CPI, so we don't know what that number is going to be yet.
With the government shutdown, that disrupted a lot of the economic data production. And so a lot of the data is either going to be late or won't be produced at all.
Okay.
But essentially, between having 122 days of cash on hand and only needing a 5.62%, I think, increase, that indicates that you've got a financially healthy water system.
I think the city council was also wanting to see comparisons to uh, uh, water systems around us, and I believe you that.
Right, and we updated the data that we provided last time. There's a table on page 9, and then on pages 10 through 15, it shows the graphs associated with that. What that shows is that on the inside city and outside city, that your current rates are for the 5/8 inch meters are the fourth lowest and fifth lowest out of 17, and that you would bump up a couple of spots from 4 to 6 and from 5th to 8 by increasing that. And if you go to page 10, you can see there's where it says Calvert City current rates, and then above that, Calvert City proposed rates. And again, these are relatively very modest rates. You can see there's folks that are not far from you all that are paying substantially more. And then this is a question of rate design, but that while you all are on the low end for the small services, for the larger services, like the 6-inch meter inside and outside the city, there you all are more in the middle of the pack, but again, what I would consider to be very reasonable rates. So the simple question for the water system would be, do you want to implement this rate increase so that you're recovering depreciation, or do you want to wait until the CPI numbers come out and go with that? Are we ready to move on to the sewer system, or do you have any other questions on the water? Okay.
Appreciate you.
I do have a question. Looking at this table on page 9
Right.
of where, I don't know if you have it, Mr. Gibson, you may have to address it. Which one of these do we get most of our revenue from? Is it mostly 5/8? Or because we have special circumstances with very much business using our water, is that higher? Do you know?
I can
which
show you
ones?
that. Do I have does this give me permission to share my screen? I can
It
check
does.
real quick. Okay.
I did allow you.
Okay.
Should, yeah.
Then with that, let's
Good
see.
question.
Um, let's see. Just a moment here.
While you're doing that, this is a question for you. When we raise the rates
It
each
goes
year
across the-
because of CPI, it's across the board. So it doesn't really matter the way we've done it so far. Okay.
Okay, what you should see there in front of you is something that says billing analysis with 2024 to 2025 usage and existing rates. Is that what you're seeing, a spreadsheet?
Yes.
Yeah, the spreadsheet's there.
Okay. And what that says is that you've got on the water system, 1,833,000 in revenue. And let me kind of spin down through this. For the 5/8 inside city, that's $290,000 in revenue.
Okay.
3/4 inside city is $46,000 in revenue. 1 inch inside city is $45,000. 1.5 inches, 40,000, and 2 inches, 115,000. Then if you go, let's go spin down to the outside city rates. The 5/8 inch outside city is $140,000. 1 inch is 12,000. So I would say the preponderance of your revenue is coming from the inside city rates. With I think the largest single amount is the 3 inch and 4 inch meters. The 3 inch inside city is $441,000, and the 4 inch inside city is $680,000. Okay.
Thanks.
Okay.
Okay, I think we can move on, Bob, to the sewer.
Okay. On the sewer, the handful of things that I would want you to know about the sewer system. First of all, again, same set of numbers, unaudited numbers from 2024 to 2025, very little adjustment. So we basically made the computations based off of that. We have, with that, we added the debt service for the influent lift station and sewer rehab project. And so that added, that project added about $185,000 worth of debt service a year as far as principal and interest, and then probably another $35,000, $40,000 of debt service coverage. So having that, bringing that in, it represents a significant increase in the revenue requirements. Also, right now in the city infrastructure advances payable, right now the system is showing that the sewer system owes the city $250,000. It's our best estimate that to close out that sewer project, you're going to have to draw about another $150,000. And so that means that your total amount payable to the city infrastructure system is going to be about $400,000. And so to pay that back over a 3-year period, I'm going to be recommending that you consider increasing the amount that you pay back from the sewer system to the city from $5,000 a month to, somewhere around $10,000, $11,000 a month. Okay. Some other things going on. The sewer system has a little bit less working capital, where you had 120 days, 122 days of working capital on the water system. You've got 76 days of working capital on the sewer system. And you'll recall that when I talk about days of working capital, what I do is I take your operating expenses and add to that first of all, take your operating expenses, subtract out depreciation, since that's a non-cash expense. So that gives me my cash-based, and I'm on page 5 here to show those computations. Have the cash-based operating expenses, add in the debt service and coverage, and that gives me your total annual cash requirements. If I divide that by 365, that means every day of the year, your sewer system has to produce $3,226 in cash. And with the type of natural disasters that can strike a utility, whether it's like the storms that were down in Dawson Springs and Maysville, or the flooding that took place over in eastern Kentucky, a natural disaster can knock a utility's ability to bill and collect funds out for 1, 2, 3 months at a time. And when that happens, you've still got bills to pay. So we recommend that you maintain about 90 days of cash reserves. And so with that on the sewer system, you've got 76.3 days, which is, pretty good, but we recommend that you include in your revenue requirements an additional $15,000 a year to get your cash reserves back up. So with that, when we look at the your revenue requirements, we look at your operating expenses and then add in the new debt service for your new project and the new depreciation for your project. If you were going to try to recover all three of those revenue requirements of operating expenses, debt service, and depreciation, and bring your working capital up to 90 days and pay your um, uh, balance due to the city off within 3 years, that would indicate that a just over a 100% rate increase is necessary. But let's talk about that for a second, because you've um, you've got some options that are available to you. The one of them is uh, you have to decide, first of all, if you're going to pay the city back over 3 years or some longer period of time. Okay, because uh, the, it's my understanding that you all have a cooperative relationship, and that's something that can be worked out over time. I am assuming that it has to be paid off in 3 years, but perhaps it doesn't. Perhaps it can take a longer period of time. Second thing is the do you need to include the depreciation in the revenue requirements? My advice is whenever I see a rate increase like this, that you start off by making sure that the system is covering all of its cash requirements. And if you look down at the bottom of page 4 and exclude out the depreciation, instead of a 100% rate increase, it would be a 57.7% rate increase. Some other things that have to be considered is that you all are in a growing part of the state. You all have organizations and businesses that have indicated investments that they plan to make over the next year, the next 2 years. And so with that, you've got some options as far as not having to take the whole rate increase at once, in consideration of the very likelihood that these new customers are going to be bringing additional revenue, with that additional revenue offsetting the need for future rate increases. The other thing, of course, is that you can do this on a multi-year plan, that you don't have to do a hard reset every year, but you can say, I want to ramp this in over 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. And when we did this, we assumed it would be done over 3 years. And so with that, let's see. If you go to page 8 of your sewer report, if you wanted to recover depreciation and everything else, what you might consider would be a 57% rate increase in the first year, 13% in the second year, 12% in the third year. The other option that you have is, because you all are a municipality and governed by home rule, which means that your city council approves the rates, not the PSC. With that, you have the option of having some intersystem transfers where the water system can provide financial support to the sewer system on a short period of time to help balance things out. Okay. And so that's the possibility that I showed you there on page 8. If you look at it, then I have showed what the rate schedule would look like if there was no phase in of the rate increase on page 10. And then if you wanted to do it over 3 years, I show it year 1 on page 11, year 2 on page 12, and let's see, I'm sorry, let me back up. Year 1, or I showed the comparison of the bills on page 12, 13, 14, and 15. And so with that, there's not as many comparisons available on the sewer system, but if you look on page 17, I show just for the residential size meters inside city and outside city, and I show what the effect would be for what are your current rates and what are your proposed rates. Right now, your current rates, I looked at 10 different utilities. Your current rates put you essentially in the middle of the pack, and the proposed rates would be at the top of the pack. The important thing to consider when you do those comparisons is each system has different cost structures. And when I talk about that, those different cost structures, here's essentially what I'm saying is that, for lack of a better term, this has been your all's time in the barrel. This has been the time that you all have had to make major investments in your sewer system. The reason why the others is they haven't had to make those major investments in their sewer system at this time. However, as sure as the sun's going to come up tomorrow, there's coming a time at some point in the future that they're going to have to make large increases. So that when you make these large increases now, you may not have to make them again anytime in the future. Where they're not making them now, they'll be low, but then when they make their large investments in the future, they'll have large rate increases too. And so with that, your long-term objective is to keep your systems sustainable, financially healthy, financially viable, and sustainable. And so then the approach becomes, how do you do that in a way that doesn't shock your customers? And so you've got some possibilities. My belief is while you could get by with an ordinary CPI rate increase on the water system, the sewer system needs something substantially larger than that. And when the question becomes one of affordability, and if we look at the graph on page 18, okay, right now the graph on page 18 shows that the monthly bill for 4,500 gallons for city of Calvert City is $41.41. To take that year 1 rate increase at 57%, that would take it up to $65.34. While that represents a substantial increase, it's not, again, it's a matter of perspective, but as your consultant, I would say that's not a catastrophic increase. It is certainly a substantial increase, but it's not one that doesn't have a story. You've got a very good story to tell, which is that you took your plant out of the floodplain and moved it to safer ground. And so with that, my advice would be to consider building a plan. I don't think you need to, many times I recommend go on and adopt the 3-year program of rate increases. Go on and bite, that would be my normal advice. Go on and bite the bullet and have the 3-year program of rate increases. However, because you've got future projects coming on board, what I would recommend instead is this rate study is fairly straightforward and easy. Either I or any other consultant or your staff could easily update this rate study next year. If those new projects come on board and generate additional revenue next year, you can take a look at it and say, okay, if we take this rate increase in year one, let's update the rate study for year two and see what we need to do there. And just know it's in all likelihood, you're going to have at least 3 years worth of rate increases on the sewer system, not related to the CPI, but instead related to the investments that you've made at your sewer plant. Then it's a question of how much of that you know that you need to get this year, this coming year, versus what are the new projects going to bring in, and can you come back with the smaller increases in the future? Then let's talk a little bit about that, and then I've got some other recommendations on both the water and the sewer system together. Can I answer? What are your questions on the sewer system?
Mr. Miller, could you tell me the total amount of costs that you have that you're figuring on that sewer influent lift service?
Yes.
What is your total amount there?
What I'm saying is if you go to page 6, the second row shows the debt service for the next 3 years. So it's about $183,000 per year.
Well, what's the total amount you're basing that on?
I'm
that-
sorry. That is let me
That
pull
was-
it up here real quick, just a moment.
That was the 3 million that I gave you the number, correct?
I
3
believe
million, a little over 3 million.
What was our total grant on that for?
Our total loan, that's
Yeah.
what it was.
3 million?
3.1 or 3.2.
$3,160,433.
Yes.
3,160,000.
And what you've calculated is pretty, that's spot on what they were telling me we would be paying about 98,000 or the payments vary. So it was gonna be twice a year. I think they start out at 98,000, then they go down some. or-
And 97, it should be around
That's
97,000.
still at 2%, something like that.
1.5.
I'm looking at
1.5.
1.5% for 20
Okay.
years.
Yeah.
So I'm picking up the debt service. And then if you go over to page 7, I'm picking up $79,000 a year of depreciation on that investment.
How many years you spread that out over, Bob?
Of the plant, I think just a second here. I did that over 40 years.
40 years?
Yes, sir. That 3,160,000 over 40 years. And again, on the sewer system, it's not income, it's not necessary. It would be nice, but it's not necessary to start picking up the depreciation. But to the greatest extent possible, repeating the message that I brought to you last time, in the long term, the water revenue should pay for the water system, sewer revenue should pay for the sewer system, and tax revenue should pay for your general government operations. However, that's in the long term, that's best practice. In the short term, it's not unusual if you consider your community finances is like a suit of clothes, where the jacket is the tax revenues, the trousers are the water revenues, and the vest is the sewer revenues. What you need to do is make sure your suit has enough money. And then And that might mean moving some money from the jacket to the trousers or from the trousers to the vest. But in the long term, you want to make sure that everything pays its own way. But what my specific recommendation on in all of this is that you consider for the water system that 5.62% rate increase for this year, and for the sewer system, you consider that 57.7% rate increase for next year, and then come back and look at it. And what I'm anticipating is that in year two, that the water system could go back to the CPI increases, and for the sewer system, you would probably have a rate increase not to exceed 13 or 14%, but you may be able to get by with less than that. If you wanted to get by with less than a 57% rate increase, what you would do is not, in all of this, I'm assuming that you wanted to pay the city back within 3 years. If you don't pay the city back within 3 years, that amount goes down a small amount, a modest amount, but it does go down. But the fact of the matter is, this is a tough pill to swallow, but this was a big project that you're going to have to pay for.
So, the option of doing nothing means what, 5 to 10 years from now, we're gonna have some major projects and have to take out huge loans and then address those loans.
Well, let's see. I think there's when you look at do nothing, if you do absolutely no rate increase on
No, I mean CPI, but we would keep doing CPI.
If you just kept doing the CPI on the water system, it probably would not make a material difference.
CPI does cover water and sewer, Bob. I don't know.
Yeah, but if you then on the sewer system, because you have such a big amount of debt service coming online, something's going to have to pay that debt service.
Right.
And the sewer system simply doesn't have the revenues to pay that debt service. So you're either going to have to take that out of the water system, or you'll have to take it out of your taxes. And so my belief is that I'm going to use a gory expression. That new debt service is like a significant bleeding wound on your community's finances, and you've got to find a way so that you're not bleeding out at that pace. And that is why I'm recommending that substantial rate increase. It's an expensive project and comes with expensive debt service. And with that, while I think that your new customer growth will offset a portion of it, I think I think you would be in a financial crisis before enough growth took place to offset it.
I have one question. I'm just a little confused on page 8 on the table. Is it just a coincidence that I guess the first question is that table is doing the 100.96% increase, taking into account depreciation?
Yes.
And is it just a coincidence that the first year, if you ramp it in, is the same figure as the percentage of 57.77 is just so happens to be the same percentage figure of the non-depreciation amount?
No, that's not a coincidence. That's essentially a fact. Is that because if you go back to page 4, it essentially that's the top is cash requirements plus depreciation. The bottom is cash requirements only. And so literally that's where that 57.77 came from.
Okay, so I got you. So,
All right.
yeah, okay. Yeah.
And then what we do is that leaves you about $340,000 that we would pick up about 169 in year 2 and 169 in
Okay.
year 3.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense though. So the first year that number was chosen because of that cash requirement. Okay.
Precisely.
Okay. I was just kind of, I wanted to make sure that I was understanding that.
Yes.
So on that same page 4, the debt service coverage of $81,000. $81,000, that's based on a 3-year payback.
Okay, and the debt service and coverage is the average of the 3 years of debt service. Okay, and the things that if you wanted to strike it up, a couple of items off, you could strike off that additional working capital,
Right?
and you could strike off the infrastructure advances payable. If the
That's
city
really,
doesn't,
that's really the one we can play with.
those are the 2 cash items that you can play with.
Okay.
Okay, so if you wanted to go down on the bottom half, of that page, you could cross out that 14,723 and the 13,333, and I can tell you what that number would be real quick.
Great.
42,000.
By the way, if you see me clutching my chest, I'm not having a heart attack. That means that I pulled a muscle in my chest earlier this week, and talking is aggravating it.
That's good to know.
Oh, trust me, I had a stress test. So if you were to exclude depreciation,
Mm-hmm.
live with the amount of working capital that you've got right now,
Right?
and not pay the city anything back on their
Gotcha.
advances, not even the $5,000, then your rate increase would need to be 38.87%, or essentially just under 40%. And I would have no qualms about making a recommendation like that. That's not unreasonable for you all. But again, my advice is bite the bullet and cover the additional debt service. Even if you don't bite the bullet to have the additional working capital or recover depreciation.
Right. The debt service, yeah, that's hard. So the repayment of the city for property that the city owns, that's the number 133.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the one I was hunting.
So if you, like I said,
1,000 is servicing that 2.5% loan.
yeah. So if
Okay.
you take those numbers out, that becomes 38.87.
And that's one that I guess I'm trying to build a model is kind of the minimum zero, so make sure that we're breaking even.
Yes.
So in that case, we've used city resources to fund the needed sewer improvements because we had an agreed order with the state. We're using tax monies to forward that money to the sewer system to get out of trouble with the state.
Well, let me rephrase that for you, if I may, is that you're using that money to cover the difference between what the amount of money that you borrowed and the amount that project cost.
Right. Well, I think when you look at this and you see the numbers as they are, it's like, why in the heck did you do that project? Man, we didn't have any choice. We
Yeah.
had to. So it's the number that had to be expended to bring us up to required operational capability.
To bring you up to regulatory compliance.
Right.
And
So even there, saying that we forwarded this money, And we're gonna continue to string along an additional working capital. That is that 40% number.
Yes, the 38 point.
That's bringing on board
87.
the loan value that we talked about at 3.3 million, I think it was, at 2.5%,
Right.
1.5%.
Yep.
Okay.
Let me point out one other thing. I did not get into your debt covenants, but most of the debt that municipalities have, the issuer has what's called a coverage requirement of 1.2 times. Are you all familiar with that?
Mhm.
Okay, because typically there's a paragraph in the indenture agreement that says rate covenant, and it says you'll maintain revenues in excess of expenses of a ratio of 1.2 times. If you go into your debt covenants and for some reason, instead of it being 1.2 times, if it's 1.1 times or 1.0 times, we can make a further adjustment. I'm just assuming that your coverage requirements are the same as everybody else's. And by everybody else, I'm saying like 80 to 90% of the municipalities have a coverage requirement of 1.1 or 1.2. Or have a of 1.2. A few of them have 1.0 or 1.1. Okay.
It's called a what? A city's what?
Debt service coverage. If you
Debt
go
service. Thank you.
over to page 6, at the top, you see what your principal and interest would be over the next 3 years. And so I show here's what your average annual principal and interest is 405,000, and your average annual debt service coverage is 81,000. And so that's where you would need to look into your debt covenants and see what the coverage requirements were. It's one of those little things that's buried down in the fine print. But for the purposes of doing this across the state, because nearly everybody has a requirement of 1.2, that's what I assumed your all's was too.
Okay.
And if you want, you can send me your KIA loan documents and I could verify that real quick. But I'm nearly certain KIA requires 1.2, just like everybody else. Okay. Right. If there's no other questions about the sewer system, there's a couple, 2 or 3 other items that I would like to talk to you all about that are a little bit outside the scope of this rate study. The first item that we talked about is how do we factor in future growth? And my advice is always, whenever you're doing a rate study, only use the numbers that are known and measurable. And that is until they're actually online and buying water service from you, buying sewer service from you, my advice is don't count your chickens before they hatch. Okay. The second thing is right now we are only focusing on what your operating requirements are going to be. I'm going to reiterate what I've said in the past, which is I would encourage you to have at least a 3 to 5 year program of capital improvement program. What are the investments? What are the capital investments that you're going to need? You know what your labor needs are going to be, your power, chemicals, contractual services, transportation equipment. You know what all that's going to be, but you should really consider, what trucks trucks and backhoes am I going to need to replace? What pumps am I going to have to replace? What water towers am I going to have to paint? And what computer systems am I going to have to paint? And build out a 3 to 5 year capital improvement program so that you know not only what your operating expenses are going to be, but what your capital improvements are going to be. Then along with that, I would encourage you to consider going on and just saying, instead of just what are my rates going to need to be to pay the bills, how am I also going to pay for these capital improvements? What amounts of debt am I going to have to take on? What year am I going to have to take on that debt? And what flexibility do I have to do I have to paint the water tower next year, or can that be put out a year or two? Again, my advice is go on and take the time to build out that multi-year capital improvement program, and then to have the multi-year financing plan for that capital improvement program. Okay. I've given you all a lot to think about. If you all have questions, we're still significantly under budget on this project. And so if you have other questions that you want pursued or other alternatives that you want considered, we can certainly do that. Or if you need me to come down and talk to and present to the city council as well, I can do that. So just let me know what additional work that you want to have done. We'll get it turned around very quickly.
Bob, I think we appreciate your time and what you've done on this, and we'll keep that in mind as we move forward and with this presentation to council and see.
With that, I'm going to wish you the very best of Christmas holidays, and would love to be able to help you firm this up into an actionable item for your city council.
Okay. Thank you very much.
With that, I will depart. Thank you again. Bye now.
Thank you.
Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
Bye. Merry Christmas.
Well, Merry Christmas.
Any comments from the group or?
We've got some pretty hot leads, hot firm ideas of how we're gonna increase our sewer flow with development at exit 27. Some we're sure of, some we're hoping for. We've got another project that we're looking at with Kentucky Dam Village. To bring, they've completed projects, they got their sewer system in line with things that we said we'd have to see before we negotiated treatment of waste from Kentucky Dam Village. So that's another increase in sewer. Okay, so we hadn't counted those. We got some numbers on the Kentucky Dam stuff. There's a lot of capital decisions have to be made. Who does what and how the contract is finally agreed to. If we go that route. So, I mean, we've got some pretty good prognosis on increasing meaningfully, and I don't remember the percentage that we talked about. Do you remember that number?
I think a long way,
It was around 9%.
maybe.
Well, let's not scratch that. But we've got a flow in mind of what it's gonna be. They've been looking at they're ready to talk. We got Rivercrest Engineering ready to interface with them and work this potential project out that would help us with flow. But that's not gonna be, and as taking the conservative stance there, that's counting your chickens before they hatch. So
I was gonna say, you've got expenses associated with that. Do you have the staff to address, as these things grow? You're gonna have obviously more materials you gotta maintain and replace. So it's not like it's all net profit. I mean, just gross profit, whatever we can gain out of that.
the contract negotiation is very much centered on who does what where
Okay.
and what that does to city resources.
How about Kentucky Dam? Or are you talking about more right?
Talking about Kentucky Dam.
Okay, great. Glad to hear that.
That's part of any negotiation background, very highly sensitive to that.
Excellent. I've got several comments. When you're ready, but you go ahead and finish your thoughts here. I don't want to.
That's just it.
Okay. Okay, let's talk the 400,000. He's talking about paying that back in 3 years. Is that 400,000 because of compliance issues and, the agreed order? Is that really what the source of that is, or is it much more muddier than that? the $400,000 that we're paying back through loans. And isn't that, he's talking about 400,000, paying it back 133,000 a year.
So let
You're
me,
talking about to the city from the
Yeah,
city
to the
infrastructure
city.
loan?
Mhm.
Well, as I said earlier, that number is now mushroomed into closer to 600,000 until we get the infrastructure all settled out and know what those numbers are.
But my
currently-
question is, does that all balloon from being out of compliance? We didn't meet the numbers from the state and we've been working on this ever since.
Not all of it.
No.
Okay.
what are the components of that?
The 200,000 that's
Yes,
still owed was from where they desludged. They're still paying on that and it's been paying 5,000 a month.
Why did we dislodge? Because we
That was
wasn't
just-
working, right?
Didn't have
And
enough
that-
volume, you
that
didn't have
was-
enough volume to take
That
the
was
some years
sewage.
back.
It was a total repair, rework of the sewer
Yes.
lagoons
Yeah.
and the system and also the building of the
Influent.
influent lift station. Is where we have spent
Yeah, that's.
tons of money on the sewer system to make it function properly, to reduce inflows and outflows of water, stormwater, and
And we've
Keep it
talked
going.
about that we're gonna try to maintain this better than waiting 50 years since it was built to do that. So that'll be in our capital projects, right? So there's some,
that's the plan. And we just spent another on the two other lagoons cleaning those out because we put new liners in, so that's.
so yeah, my point is that I know the city, we can use tax dollars and we can help hit this hard and take care of this. Wonderful. But in the end, this is costing us more. It was costing us more than we were paying for it. We just waited till it got to this situation that we didn't necessarily anticipate.
I mean, I think I kind of am following you. So the
Okay.
current status of the plan is with a completed project.
Yeah.
That when he says we raised the plan out of floodplain, it means that we're no longer susceptible to flooding into putting flow through our lagoons. And the 4 lagoons, if you think about them as they're bioreactors
Okay,
and they were full. And so you didn't have much room to react, which means you didn't have much room to really take care of business
right.
or increase flows. Well, now down
Where are
there,
we now?
we've got desludged lagoons ×4. And part of what drove that was we had failure of the lagoon lining due
Yeah.
to the UV around the edge. So we were
Right.
looking to do as inexpensive halo repair as we could. And then you start looking at, well, I'm just going to do what's been exposed to UV, pump it down, and you do the hand welding, and the prices were I think they surprised everybody compared to the next one. So that's how we got into the decision to go ahead and realign it. As the failure of the
Right.
halos, and it was the best way to repair them. So that's part of the debt service back and forth, and that was the fund that Mayor Jones had established, and we were doing the sewer rehab area to fund those things. And I'm sitting on the council, wasn't into this level of detail, but some of those sewer rehabs were $1 million chunks. That was putting in all the liners and doing the smoke testing and relocating to the front and all that work
Right.
that went through, and that was to cut out the sewer inflow. So when you got so much stormwater coming in, you don't stand a prayer of staying in spec. So
So
it's been a long haul.
tax dollars, is that project coming out of city tax dollars versus from us, the sewer rates? Is that what you're saying? That's the way we've addressed this?
That's how we've gotten to where we are.
But
Okay.
you can consider it at this point a loan from the city to allow the sewer to do all these repairs.
The
And
city,
we pay the city back every time
Well,
We had it
were
down to
234,000.
234,000.
out of how much roughly?
The number I remember is $1 million, but I
Forget how much you
think
We did pay Rachel.
begin with. I'd have to look back, Bill. I'm sorry.
Wow, we paid it out of our stuff.
Million with it.
So paid that.
so the city council has accepted a much less aggressive payback of 3, but it's been paid back.
Yeah,
And it's a
okay.
transfer of funds. And how many times have we heard, how do you loan money to yourself for your own equipment? But we're trying to do enterprise level finances here.
Yes.
I mean, we get upside down and we're not making enough money to cover expenses. The plane's going down, it's time to pull up before you hit the ground, okay?
Yep.
And so that's kind of what this kind of call is. So we've got the sewer plant looking really good because we
We
were
do.
forced
Mm.
to fix the sins
Yes.
that had existed. And it's there.
50 years.
Well, I mean, that's kicking it. Nonetheless, it had to be fixed, and
Yeah.
we see what happens to cities who don't keep their utilities up.
Oh, yeah.
There's been some
Yeah.
some
Like in
news
Marion.
well, I wasn't gonna say that, but there's some news from local communities that we know that Calvert City doesn't need to be built into that. And so these rate increases are to wherever it gets negotiated, or however it ends up, is to make sure the expenses for utilities are covered by the bill, and that it's understood of how we're shifting monies around the city assets. I mean, I think I didn't really follow everything he was saying about a suit, but you got to get your whole ensemble. We got a lot of different revenue stories, there's streams, and there's different things we have to do to the city. And you got to balance all the different needs. So we still have
And
pending.
so I'm okay, Gene, if we keep doing it the way we've been doing it. If it works for the city in terms of you can balance the budget and help us when we have a big mess like this, and that's fine. Because we are in better shape.
Well,
That's for you to help call, for y'all to help call, to make sure. But again, I don't want to say, if we don't have to do this again, I don't want to. I'd love to see us.
Well, I mean, the install of the new headworks has a much better filtering system we did before, so we can keep the.
Has the city put money into that? We had that original paid down, so.
Yeah, we've drawn, when we draw from that fund, that's the city putting
So
in.
that's the city putting in for the influence.
So
station.
the fact that line of credit was established,
Mhm.
that let that happen.
So what do we owe on that now?
that's what I was saying. It was 234 and we withdrew 400.
We just drew out 423,000.
Right, 700,000.
Yeah.
So if.
Yeah, we had it paid
if part
down.
of that remedy on that issue, we get some of that back. You're not paying the loan we originally made, and I understand it, but if we can get that back, then we can use that to reduce the amount on that city draw, correct?
Whatever.
We can.
The current plan is that whatever we get back from the bonding company. After it goes through all the who did what, where, when. Whatever money we get there would be paid back against that. But we feel like I had him, and I don't think he used the numbers in here. Maybe he did. I don't remember seeing it, but I had him. I told him we would probably have $150,000 shortfall. That's a Dan Sills over the top of his head.
Maybe,
Ballpark, yes.
maybe very happy to wind up in that shape, but yeah, let's see. But that would reduce that debt to our city line of credit
Well, then to
and would give us.
further detail what we're talking about. So we've had cash flow, and the project's been, is it complete? And so there's still some pending stuff to go back with the council and recover some funds. And so at the end of the day, when we have a non-performance of a contractor and you get through that, you hope to be made totally whole at that contractor, but it ends up that it's not good for anyone when that happens. So the question is how far out of kilter is the project expense going to be, the project cost going
Yes.
to be versus where the original was, and
Right.
how far do we are. So there's
We got
still
lawyers involved now.
still negotiations. There's a bond issue to be reserved, and it's now the project is done. So that is the next step, to close that out, and then we'll have a better handle of where we're at. That's right. Okay.
Yeah.
Look over on page 8. Last thing I want to share with you is
Which
page 8
Which one?
of the sewer.
Nobody's
the
worried
one.
about, nobody's worried about the water.
No,
Okay,
I don't care about that water, 5.6%. That's pretty good. CPI, that's pretty close. Well, yeah, I'm trying to think of this from some of the issues we talked about. The first column is if we raise the sewer rates 100%, and you said that would be somebody's bill going from, just double it. Think about anybody's bill doubling on their sewer
The
side.
average bill would be, if you're 4,500 gallon customer on a 5/8 line, their bill would go to $98.
Yep.
Total water sewer.
So then the next 3 columns are the second version of his plan. And we're not tied to 3 years, that's whatever. But if we stayed within the 3 years, I did some more math. he's saying 57% the first year. He chose that just so we kind of pay the bills, you know? And then he says 13 and he says 12. Now, if you add 57, 13 and 12, that's only 82%, but it's really still 100%. The reason is the 50%, if a bill's $100, the next year
You're
it's
raising it on a
157.
higher amount,
The
compound.
13% times 100 will get you there to 100. So I went with three other numbers I want to propose to you. And again, I'm just throwing out suggestions here. What about 31% the first year? If you wanted to try to accomplish what he's talking about, 31% the second, and then 20% the third. And I did the compounding. It doesn't get you to 100%, but it gets you to 90%. In other words, the bill would go up almost 90% more than it was over that 3-year period, but it does it more gradually. One of the reasons I like it is that first year, we also are starting to get other sewer revenue coming in. And we can decide, well, that 31% really is this plus this other money we start having to come in. So you could work to what he's saying so that sewer pays for itself, but you don't have to do it so painfully right off the bat.
Yeah, I think that kind of you get in the weeds. Here's what I'm trying to figure out is how do you attach to just a sewer? And then what in fact does that do with the water? Y'all have got it built in at about 2.5 times the water rate, right?
I
Two
think
and a
it's
half
about,
times your water bill.
I think
Oh,
it's
here-
about double,
So,
about
Yeah.
double.
so if you raise the water a little, but you want to raise the sewer more, then you've got to figure out is that 3 times that? Is that 3.5 times? And is that something within your capacity to figure out how you get to this?
Well, I don't think it matters that it's 2%, I mean, like double it or anything else. That's just kind of how
You got a
it's
rate.
set up.
You got a rate.
But we have rates and the rates
got a
are
sewer-
all broken down
You've got a
separate.
sewer rate.
Oh, yeah.
What is our current sewer rate? Yeah.
I don't know. I think he had it in here, current rates.
But my point is just, if we want to do this,
1961,
How much?
2019 dollars and
No,
61.
that's the amount. I want to know the rate. It's not 19. He's talking percentages.
Oh,
And so we got to get to a percentage of how much, if we're trying to raise the sewer, which we want to raise more than we want to raise the water.
Right.
So how do we determine what
There's
that
a-
would actually be? And what is
Here's
our
what I'm trying to say, Steve. There's a rate for the water.
Uh-huh.
Let's just use the $1.50 a gallon.
Right.
And the sewer has another rate independent of that $1.50. It just happens to be 2.5 times it,
it's not tied together.
not tied together in the
Not-
billing.
But it's 2.5 times our water rate.
But it's not really, that's just a,
Works out that
Statement.
way,
It
but it's
works out
not a
that way.
contract.
The sewer rate set
Right.
independently of the water rate is right now is at 2.5%.
so
Know what
you
you're
would
saying?
just, yeah, and then you just go to the
It's
sewer and
2.5
add
times.
add
So it's 200
40% to it.
It's 200%.
50%, or.
It's 2.5 times.
He's saying about 200%, but
2.5 times the rate.
Yeah,
So if you got.
So you're
100,
saying somebody
it's
bill-
2.5 times 100.
Yeah.
but
So
I'm
that
saying in the
makes it
billing
three.
system that
So,
they're using,
okay. So, right.
You asked a very specific question and I don't know the answer to. I know ballpark, but I don't know specific.
you can bring them up.
But yeah, so when we start, let's
Figure up a bill sometime.
when I asked him, what would we do?
Mark up
How we
his
could
name.
establish, what would be the lowest one and still recover costs with would include the debt service, drive the repayment to the floating capital loan. That 30, that's what was it, 28.9, I got it written down in here. That is kind of the floor,
Right.
okay? That's kind of the floor.
Mhm.
And this is a city council eventually,
Right.
so we've got to kind of get consensus and try to make a recommendation and see how we're gonna work through this. I mean, you can, there's a lot of different options you can do. I mean, overall, it's got to work. And,
38.9 G.
was that 38.9?
Yeah.
Um.
You'll
And
also-
we can, I mean, when I call it the floor,
Mhm.
it doesn't have to be the floor. there's other, we can continue to utilize tax money, tax indebtedness. And, but I think it's a call that something has to happen above or just CPI sort of thing.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah,
There's
it's
a lot
not,
of, there's a lot of different things we can do. There's a lot of different timing we can do. We can, see where the negotiations with the council, because we could take a rate increase because of our ordinance. And so when is that going to affect by CPI?
In January.
January.
Mhm.
Oh, boy. Okay, so you're talking about trying to do something in conjunction with that to keep from having the 2.5 CPI, and then you're turning around and doing it again. That doesn't seem like something we want to really get into too much. But we can sharpen up the pencil and take a look around. We could even say, we could try to count the chickens before they come home to roost and look at that.
you've got a CPI 3.5%.
Okay.
We can recommend that we also bring that 2% of water increase to hit the 5% that he's talking about. But that's all no depreciation. That's a slippery slope to get on. You're not counting depreciation. I don't know about the ins and outs of the accounting codes that are
Right.
there. How are you gonna do when you have your city books audited? Are they gonna ding us on that? So we don't have to do it. But I know we can spread some of that depreciation more to the water, even though it's sewer.
Yeah.
And that's allowable, right?
Yeah.
No,
we can.
so-
not really.
But
Not
I'm
really.
not,
I
I
mean, it's
don't like the idea.
This is the
it's
account.
allowable because it's going to be set based on the business case studies.
Yeah,
This, obviously, Bob has done a lot of it.
Yeah.
The way he breezes through here and the way he talks about the issues, he's been to multiple utility boards, he's dealt with multiple municipalities, he knows it.
Mhm.
Okay, fine. Well, we know Calvert City, so here's our cost accounting analysis. He's willing to do whatever sensitivity that we need to ask, and I think we may be asking them. And but the decisions on what to do ultimately are for the boards and the
For those
council.
guys over there.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so
So I just want to say, there's one thing I wanted to say kind of real quick while it's on my mind before I. So basically, the way the system is right now, that was even brought up in the meeting, a lot of our water usage is outside the city limits by industrial customers. They're not going to pay for much of this sewer because most of them don't have sewer.
right.
Now, he did say it was legal and okay for water and sewer to sort of combine their revenue streams. So just throwing this out there, and this is right off the top of my head, so don't like hold me to it or anything, but if we increased the water by a little more percentage or maybe a moderate more percentage,
Mhm.
that would take some of that pressure off of the residential folks in the city
Mhm.
and put it on some of the folks who can afford it a little bit more and generate some more of that income to be able to not have to raise the sewer as much, which is going to affect all of our residential folks. Does that make sense?
I mean, there's all
Yes.
kinds of strategies we can.
Yes, ideally, it would be, in an ideal world, yes, if the water could support the water and the sewer could support the water, but we're kind of in a little bit of an upside down situation where the part of our utility that needs the most money is the part that's not tied to that.
Now, remember, this was talking about all the water cells. We had a question on our board, with the more volume you have, the more reduction you have. We haven't gone into, we can use this as the basis and go into the weeds to make sure that our volume discount is not too deep.
Right.
Okay, so that goes hand in hand with the kinds of things we passed out to city council, the recommendation for services. These are things that add to our operational expenses. Those are things that take our time. You say, well, if you weren't doing that, you'd be playing tiddlywinks. That's not exactly true. But as we expand the systems, at what point do you add another person or another truck or have to put another generator service on? All that stuff. We've got some contracts with a single source that we need to talk about and work on that. So when we're doing this, we have to, these are big. And we've got to really get in the weeds and look at each one of these things to make sure that it's where it needs to be. And if you let any of them slide off, that means somebody else is paying for that portion of it. Okay. And so in private industry, that's what you get into. And in my world, it gets into, okay, which products are going to which customers and which ones are got good profit margins and which ones are we got a lot of competition with. And so you make these kinds of decisions all the time where you got to get in some really specific cost details. And Bob, and this one is actually going to help us take that, what are our discount rates are versus what Bobby has to spend to make 1,000 gallons. Is that getting too skinny down at the end? So that gets into what you're talking about really, but it's more technical. And this is why that rate has been changing. And Bill, I think that I'm ashamed to say that I don't know what percentage comes to where. I'm very interested in that question. I want the pie charts. I want to know which segment of our business is shouldering which one, and go back to the cost counting and look at the margins. And I say margins, we don't have to make money on this. We are not in the business of making money making
No.
water and sewer.
No.
We're in the business of making it a reliable utility.
One that lasts for another
Pay for
100 years,
itself.
that kind of thing.
So that's what we're after. We're not trying to make any money. When I
No.
say margins, boy, that's probably the wrong dialogue to be using here. But
Pay-
with these
pay-
kinds of details, we need to go through each one of the segments and make sure that they're all kind of aligned properly. And it's
Well, if nothing else, maybe our capital expenditures on the sewer side won't be quite as hefty as it's been the last couple
well,
of years, right?
I
We
mean,
hope.
Ideally.
You can keep hoping.
It is an old system.
Bob, or Dan, I like to hope because there's a brand new headword for the brand new bar filter is keeping the insolubles out of our freshly emptied lagoons. So it's standing about as tall as it could be made standing in the same technology.
It is, and it's
And
concrete 12
reflects-
inches thick, so it can last
that
40
reflects-
plus years. So
Yeah, and that's a good thing.
And we were, we didn't get into what if, but we had to get up to compliance status, and that's where we are.
Thank you for all your
So you need to leave.
Dan.
And do remember
All right,
anything,
there's 3 items on here that we, just to quickly update you, the lagoon liner replacement, Bobby's done, finished. Okay, that one's
We ain't started filling them yet, but
Okay.
all the liners and everything.
everything in there. Okay, the influent lift station is finished, paid for. And then the other item, it may take a little longer, so, but we need to be thinking about this. We need to get into the Clean Water Act and figure out where we're gonna spend 200,000 that we've already got in the grant money. And
it did
look
include
at the
that.
plan.
Chad,
and
read
give
what
us a
that.
piece of paper.
Is that related to that?
Kind of
Yeah.
seems like we had a project there that was within that, now I'm not seeing.
Well, it's in there at $340,000. And if, according to Chad, if we go with an average rate of $70 a foot, up to $100 a foot, we could get about 2,000 feet of that down the, what is it, what's it, Little Rock, Little Rock.
So if we spend the 200,000, to get how far in Little Rock and how many houses?
Approximately 2,000 feet, and I don't have the houses that's in them there.
Michael's more familiar with that, so if we get 2,000 feet, what we can pay for, where does that get us down that
You're walking
road?
through the neighborhood when you will.
Yeah,
Yeah, I haven't wheeled lately. I could ride my bike on there.
That's a great idea. That's like
Yeah.
that's the whip.
It's got approximately
Same thing.
3,000 feet.
okay, on the graph. Okay.
I don't know.
You can read
I
that.
don't know where it's
graph.
at, so I got no idea where it's
You
at.
got new items.
This is off the Lone Valley.
Yeah,
That's down here. He said proposed, it's approximately 3,200.
that's 32. So that would be this one here, so
Yeah. there
how
would be-
far does this one get us down?
Looks like the same to me.
So we got options and we can,
I tell you, this would be, and I think this would be. houses.
We'll talk to Chad and get some more information on it,
Yeah.
exactly where we are, but that's the alternative I think we need to go with
Okay, yeah,
out there.
okay.
is everybody pretty much in agreement with that?
Yeah, I don't know, what do we need to do? Because I'm kind of concerned that we're gonna let this cost of living
That's
hit,
the
and
reason why
then
we
we're
need to
gonna
make a
come back. So
decision.
if we need to have another meeting or two, we need to be working through and sharpening that pencil and say, okay, then what do we do on the sewer side?
Bottom line, right now, the CPI is per ordinance. So until that ordinance is changed, which requires Ashley will have to write a new one up
You can
on
still
whatever
do that,
y'all
Dan,
want.
to it.
I will be doing the CPI increase because that is per ordinance right now. Correct. It's
That's what
in
I'm saying.
January. So I can't do anything about that right now without an ordinance.
It's not
change.
asking you to do. that.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
If that's 3% CPI,
right.
he's calling for 5%. You can do a rate increase of 2.something
Last year it
percent
was closer to four
And you
point
can-
something.
or 4 point. If you
It
think it'd be
was,
that
I
high,
think it was 4.63 last year.
well, if it's that high, then you got 2.5 times that you can take off of your sewer. You see what I'm saying?
No,
Because it's gonna raise your sewer
Oh.
2.5 times when you change your water.
No, it's not, Stevie, I think you're thinking wrong about the 2.5 times. You don't take the water rate and multiply it times 2.5. There is a rate for the sewer.
Well, that's what I asked for.
Yeah, and it just goes up
So
the
what is
same
the
rate.
rate?
The rate for
Yeah, for
sewer,
sewer.
it has its own rate.
Well, that's what
And I don't have my rate schedule in front of me.
Me.
But I think in here he had 1961, I think.
Well, regardless, if you raise the water rate.
And so it would go up.
Percent, you're gonna
Sewer
raise the
rate
sewer
will go
rate.
up.
Correct.
It's gonna go up.
The rate,
Yes.
will raise 4% as well.
Right. So
Yes,
both of those
correct.
cues off
Yeah.
of the total rate we're talking about.
Yes. that
So
would
it'd be
great.
nice to know what the difference is if we're gonna recommend an increase.
Yeah.
Right, and
That is
and
great.
we've been trying to get that number and it's CPI.
And it not, and I figured it had something to do with the shutdown and he said it did. I was like, great. So I may not even get that number.
Okay.
yeah, so you might have to delay it a month or something.
Be delayed, or you may have to use a.
So then it looks like you're gonna let that CPI run its course, then we're gonna be back at the table talking about the rate. Is that how
Sounds
we're
like it.
gonna do it?
Sounds like it.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
I agree.
Believe that's true.
All right. Everybody okay? Good?
Yeah.
Need a motion?
You're sitting in Kevin's seat, but you're not on the board, so you can't make. Sorry about it.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Got
Have
a
a motion
second.
and a second to adjourn.
He did say something.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Yeah.
Thank you, council members, for attending. I appreciate that.
I mean, I got this.
Go right here.
Oh.
I wanted to point out on page 17.
Still online.
Give us